Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar topic of reducing IT spend. A couple things about ITS before we get started. ITS is an elite ServiceNow partner with a strong heritage in both hardware asset management and software asset management on the ServiceNow platform. And we want to welcome you again to joining us today. So let's get started. Let's meet our guest speakers today. It's my pleasure to introduce you to first, Eric Farrington from ServiceNow. Eric is the product management director leading the charge in the IT asset management space. Lastly, we have our own Kathleen Bailey of ITS. Kathleen serves as a senior business process consultant with heavy focus and knowledge around SACM. We look forward to the discussion around reducing IT spend with ServiceNow IT asset management. And with that, I'll pass it over to both Eric and Kathleen.
So today we're going to talk about getting value for your IT asset management program. And we're going to start with, what is IT asset management? Basically, IT asset management is a set of business practices that join the financial, contractual, and inventory functions that you supports the lifecycle management and the strategic decision-making of your IT environment. So you'll see this diagram over here on the right-hand side of this slide. It starts with planning, moves through acquisition, through receipt, through inventory management, deployment, maintaining, retire, and end of life. And all of those things evolve around a central single system of record. Some of the goals of asset management include the ability to control your inventory as it's purchased and used, reduce the cost of purchasing and managing your assets, managing the asset lifecycle from planning and achieving compliance with relevant standards and regulations. You can improve your service to end users through visibility and knowing what you have in the environment. And you can create standards and processes for managing those assets and driving efficiency, reducing risk, and driving down costs. So that's some of the key areas that you want to focus on. And one of the things that's often said in this space and why you want to manage your assets in layman's terms is basically, what do we have, where is it, and who's using it? So those are kind of the high-level goals of asset management. For software investments, why do they often go to waste? And you'll also see this in the hardware space that companies often deal with, and its manual work is siloed, and that manual work reinforces those silos. So you have many different tools often competing with the same information and a need to reconcile that. You have a lack of full visibility to your costs. So the costs are fragmented across various systems and tools and information. You end up, because of that, with siloed and frustrated teams, and you have a reactionary audits and fire drills that come in. So basically, your manual work becomes driven by gaps in tools, and you'll find that I actually often call this a disruption, in that your organization, rather than dealing with the data and responding to the need, is spending a critical amount of their time reconciling data and getting multiple sources to give you the same answer. And that's often a struggle across organizations. Also, your CMDB and your foundational source of truth can become polluted from poor management and oversight from multiple tools and not being sure which one is the system of record. Your reporting will lack transparency because you have to go across the organization to collect that data. And just in general, you end up with a poor user experience and low satisfaction when you have this type of scenario going on in your organization. So again, the struggle of manual asset management. This is a big story here. You see this across many organizations. Again, many tool gaps, they're filled by manual processes from all the way from purchase to disposal. Multiple functions participating in that with disparate tools. That leads to human error from repetitive tasks, and that leads to poor trust and reliability and poor quality in your data and your services to the end user. And then ultimately that leads to inaccurate information from the point of receipt to what's installed, to what's been purchased, and that impacts your planning, your ability to optimize and manage your costs, and the ability to respond to external risks, audits, and activities that come in that need to be addressed from an external perspective, both regulatory and privacy risks. So I'm sure many of you have seen this types of activities going on within your business and your organization. We have both planned and unplanned activities that are impacted by the assets and the foundational information around the assets. Budget cuts. Where do I cut? What do I cut? What do I have? Where can I reduce costs? Asset management plays a strong role within the ability to do that. I have upcoming software renewals or hardware refreshes. What should I refresh? When should I refresh it? What's aged? What should come out? What software are we using? What software are we not using? These are all opportunities with good visibility to then drive efficiency and cost reductions. You're expanding your data centers or you're consolidating a data center. Planning and the financial planning around that. Assets are at the foundation of being able to make decisions in that space. Tool consolidations, application rationalizations, security initiatives. So you've got various things you need to do around security, and oftentimes, IT asset management is a key partner with security. And one of the bywords that's often said about this is security and asset management need to be best friends, because the information about the assets feeds the ability for security to meet their initiatives and goals. Unplanned things that happen in the organization, workforce reductions, large intern onboarding or offboarding of various employees as you're going through reductions and other major activities. Knowing what you have, what you don't have, what you have to source. Assets are at the foundations of being able to support those activities. Sudden remote workforce transition or changes in economic outlook. So, for example, I know many of you have gone through this, but as the workforce moved from internal offices to home-based offices in the recent COVID scenario would be an example of that. Software compliance audits, this often come in unplanned. IT hardware assets underpin software compliance audits, because you have to know very often, depending on the type of software, what hardware and environments are they sitting on. And so having a good handle on both hardware and software is critical for audits. Mergers and acquisitions, who owns what, where is it, who's using it? Those are all very critical when you're dealing with a merger and acquisition. So this slide is just showing that very often we focus on software and the opportunity to optimize through software spend, but there is still a significant amount of budget for corporations that goes to the hardware environment, and it is expected to be consistent at about 21% for the next foreseeable future. Okay, Eric, would you like to speak about ServiceNow and asset management for us?
Yeah, thanks, Kathleen. I think one of the really exciting pieces about tackling asset management within ServiceNow is that we have this fantastic platform to rely on and to be able to provide asset dependency and accuracy to our customers. One of the things we say here is that data accuracy is the currency of asset management. It's because this is really where companies and customers begin to drive value out of these asset programs. whether it's about driving efficiencies into their business, whether it's about optimizing their inventory state, or even reducing top end cost. We at ServiceNow, we look at our asset solutions to be able to provide and connect that single platform of work activity. Being able to align our asset records where the work is being completed allows us to be able to make sure we're retaining an accurate update. Then taking up the challenge to be able to provide prescriptive workflows to drive specific outcomes towards that asset lifecycle. The combination of those, again, raising that ability to maintain an accurate environment with low effort, and then allows organizations to realize the business value and maximize the investment from those assets. So really the unique advantage is that, this is where we are able to, with the help of the Now platform, be able to manage and model that end-to-end life cycle, give businesses speed to value, right? These don't have to be long, drawn out initiatives. This can be starting with standard practice for how to conduct common activities like hardware refreshes, like loaner asset orders, like being able to manage our asset disposal process. These repeatable prescriptive processes that can also then grow very easily with the scope of your business. Right? Being able to innovate, right? For us, being able to provide 2 major releases every year. When I talk about a product like our hardware asset management or our software asset management product, we're releasing new features twice annually. That allows our customers to be able to license one time with our feature sets and be able to pick up these features as every release comes out. Okay. So it allows us to be able to then be that connective tissue between other key areas in IT management, whether it's service management, operational management, business management. All of these areas have a reliance on our asset data. And we want to be able to, again, raise that data quality and drive additional value into those connected areas. So at ServiceNow, we take this holistic approach to technology asset management. So we see different point solutions focusing on end user devices, focusing on data center and infrastructure, focusing on cloud resources. We're looking at whether these assets are in the cloud, on premises, end user facing, network or infrastructure facing, SaaS, IaaS, PaaS. We apply a platform for managing your assets across the board. Our workflows work across the enterprise, and the platform, the Now platform, allows us to have a single platform, a single data model, a single architecture. There is nowhere for our data to hide, which allows us to be able to ingrain our processes into maintaining that very accurate record and allowing our workforce to operate very, very efficiently. So when we talk about what we've done recently in the hardware asset space, in September of 2020, September of last year, within our Paris release, we launched hardware asset management. Now, we've had an asset management module on our platform for some time, and this was really a foundational piece to help set the data model of how do you bring asset records in, where do you store them, being able to have simple features around inventory management with stock rooms and transfer orders, have upfront links to procurement with being able to track PO records, and even manage contracts against the asset. The feedback we heard from our customers was, boy, we really need prescriptive nature. We really need to be able to have workflows, to have normalization, to have that end-to-end connected lifecycle experience. So in September, we launched hardware asset management, driving towards those point outcomes of being able to normalize all of those duplicate or overlapping manufacturers and models within your environment, giving you our hardware library that we update on a weekly basis as new products emerge or life cycle dates coming from the manufacturer, like our end of sale, our end of life, our end of support, being able to maintain those in your environment and have control over the aging of your assets. Driving in prescriptive workflows, which I mentioned earlier, but then also automating the tasks that if you've been on ServiceNow for a while and you've been working through the ITSM and you're using incident, change, problem, being able to automate the update, taking that manual activity out of the hands of your technician, removing the risk of an error or even a skipped update, and having that automated experience from the time that you procure an asset all the way through its end of life and disposal. Now, being able to bring in additional mobile features allows us to then audit that dynamic environment, whether I'm looking at a stockroom, whether I'm doing a wall-to-wall audit of a location. It allows the efficiency of our ServiceNow mobile app to conduct that work and then also see that activity on the platform. So as I take a cut into some of these features, we look at normalization as the first one up. ServiceNow provides a content library, which we have curated, and these are badged ServiceNow employees that continue to refine and curate this content. We send that library down to our customer instances so that as you're importing, manually creating, or even using discovery utilities to populate your CMDB and asset databases, we see variations coming across the board in the name of the product, in the manufacturer's labeling conventions. What we do is we align a match based on the manufacturer, the model, the product name, and the model number to be able to provide you that single value, that single clean value representing the output. I myself, and as a past customer, I've operated very large CMDBs where I had multiple discovery tools feeding. And I had the use case where I had 31 unique examples depicting the manufacturer Hewlett Packard. ServiceNow's hardware model normalization would be a key feature for me to get me down to that single quantifiable manufacturer value of HP. In addition, you heard me mention that the life cycles we're bringing in. So we're curating life cycle dates from our manufacturer partners of end of sale, end of support, end of extended support, end of life. And once these are aligned against the model, it's very nice to see them on an operational or tactical basis on the record. But ServiceNow being a platform where all this information is available, we can circulate these up to a strategic view. So in the technology portfolio, which I'm looking at, I have the ability to manage my business services and see the risk against that business service based on the aging of the hardware delivering that service. So I have that top-down view to be able to understand risks coming into my business based on factors that are outside of my control, like the manufacturer's end-of-life dates. So being able to provide that information into the appropriate persona, into the appropriate view, so they can plan in the future for that refresh and not take on the risk of running end-of-life equipment. We also then put in the prescriptive workflow. So we want to make sure that we provide a standard practice to our customer base. So for workflows like a standard asset request or a disposal process or hardware refresh, what are the tasks necessary to be completed for that work activity? For our customers that like this standard, they have the ability to add their assignment groups and they are live. But we also create this in a low-code framework we call Flow Designer. So for some of those customers that have a unique requirement, maybe in this disposal flow, they need to add a task to shred hard drives before they leave their site because of local compliance needs or industry compliance needs. Now, we build this in our Flow Designer, so you have a very easy drag and drop method to take this standard practice workflow and create your best practice based on your unique requirements. So you're growing from that position of strength. Now, one thing I will call out between the flows and then these tasks is the need to automate, to remove the manual dependency. So in all the flows that we provide, as well as the tasks that we're bringing in, we are automating that asset update experience. An example here would be an incident ticket where I have a break fix. A device has failed. The computer screen was broken in this case. It was swapped by the technician. And now all they need to do is record the asset or this configuration item that they dropped off. They swapped in with the user and the action they took, in this case, a swap. Now our tasks work for deployment, swaps, and retirement. And if you click the next slide, what happens is when we complete the ticket, behind the scenes, we're going through and automating the broken record for its state, its location, its assignment of various other attributes. We're actually then putting the new device into service. We're also transferring software licensing. So that allocated software, because this is a swap scenario, things that our technicians don't see in the physical environment. We want to make sure that our software licensing and our maintenance contracts also stay up to date. Those two are critical pieces of ServiceNow's automated solution. We also address your inventory accuracy. And what we do is we bring in the ServiceNow mobile app for organizations that say, listen, I need to be able to either schedule or on an on-demand basis, walk into a stock room, walk into any location, whether it's a retail location, whether it's a bank, whether it's an office location when we all return, or a data center. Be able to leverage the ServiceNow mobile app to scan all of the assets and get a readout of what was expected to be found and what was actually found. Even taking into account new assets that we're discovering that maybe weren't part of my database. Now I have a governed process to bring those in. This is actually a process ServiceNow's data center team utilized at the end of the year to the tune of being able to inventory and update over 50,000 assets across 28 data centers. And they did find a few thousand data discrepancies that they were easily able to remediate and maintain accuracy of the data center environment based on this function. Again, we want this to be batch scanned, so it's very simple to use and very easy to upload and process against the ServiceNow platform. Last piece I will highlight for our feature sets in hardware asset management is the hardware asset dashboard. Our thought here was really we wanted to create that command center experience for our asset managers. Where's the one place I can go on a daily, weekly, monthly routine and work through meaningful reports that help me in my day. Now, these aren't just footprint reports of how many assets do I have in a status. Those are all well and good, but we wanted to create focus areas like model management, procurement, inventory, and end of life, and display reports that either A, inform the asset manager about their environment, or B, show them where processes may be slowing down, where they need to interact. An example would be in our end of life tab to be able to see disposal orders that are pending the final documentation. The asset manager can quickly jump in and see that if we have documentation that's been missing from a disposal order, they can access the information to contact that vendor and remediate getting that documentation for that end of life process. So we want to put this focus on high efficiency, repeatable activities, being able to quantify the data result within HAM. So we want to make sure all of those areas of input, of intake, to be able to bring data into your system, whether it's discovery, whether it's your ERP or procurement systems, whether it's spreadsheets or manual type, that we can normalize that data upon input, and then it allows us to interact with it as our assets move through their life cycle. Again, from the time that I procure them all the way through its end of life, we want to have the processes, the automation, and the ability to interact and normalize this data so it is accurate from end to end. That allows us to drive value into those additional areas. We call it better together. So whether we're working through operations or business management or service management or even HR for onboarding, we know what assets we have, we can prove it, and we have the ability to maintain their accuracy. So again, coming back to our goals here about why ServiceNow hardware asset management, that single platform is really one of our big differentiators. Be able to drive the work completion and the ticketing and the tasks into a place that is very accessible by our operational teams. It ties directly to the asset records we're maintaining in our environment. We can automate the output, and we know that we're following best practices for how these workflows should be completed. All of that is driving the output to my business that allows me to maintain a very accurate, auditable, and relevant environment. So a couple of things I want to be able to highlight in this regard is I want to share some customer proof points. We have hardware asset management, we have software asset management providing value to our customers every day. We're seeing these use cases coming out and you know, we highlight whether it's the large commercial real estate services or our biotech organizations. You can start to see the efficiency gains and the hard dollar savings they're seeing, not only through software true ups, but also efficiencies in their hardware processes. Okay? We're even seeing organizations that through the savings that they're achieving from software asset management, it's actually funding their larger initiatives of hardware asset management or holistic technology asset management. So we're seeing great benefits across the board, and we want to make sure that, again, these are quantifiable, but they're quick time to value for the customers. You know, and Kathy, I'd love to, or Kathleen, excuse me, I'd love to be able to just share a little context here, because you see it from the field, and I certainly see it from customer interactions, but, you know, there's some horror stories out there as well. You know, being able to not have that visibility to the accurate environment, not have the repeatable processes. We've recently seen some organizations that have gotten themselves into some hot water. Highlight the Sky Betting story from late last year or mid last year, where not being able to have controls over the order, receipt, and even end of life process. You can see that an individual within the IT organization was actually purchasing equipment and then selling it on their own. Not being able to have that rationalization, the reconciliation of what they purchased versus what's in their inventory was an incredible hole that led to this output. The second piece I'll highlight is certainly the financial institution, but the fine for the data inventory risk failures. And this speaks to controls of data-driven assets, whether they're in our data center or in our office environments. How are we securing those? How do we have visibility and can maintain connection to what type of work those objects are performing? Okay, we don't want this to be the Herculean effort of manual updates. We want the work that our technicians are doing in our environment to drive the output, and for our system of record to very much be accurate to that output of what our technicians are completing.
Yes, Eric, and on that, that's often one of the drivers, unfortunately, that get organizations to really take a serious look at IT asset management. So don't be one of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that I do want to do a couple plugs here on ServiceNow as well, but just highlight some of the success that's been recognized industry-wide from ServiceNow in the last few years. Last year was a huge area of recognition from Gartner's Magic Quadrant. Our software asset management solution launched just 3 years ago, and we saw it get named as a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant amongst the likes of other organizations that have been at this game for 10 or 15 plus years. So the ability for us to innovate and drive value to customers quickly is something that's being recognized by the industry. It also allows us to be able to contribute into global ITAM standards committees, like our ISO 19770, where we are driving input into, you can see the areas. Being able to contribute that vision at a global scale allows us to, number one, make sure that we're providing value through what we continue to productize. But number two, to make sure that this information is accessible and available and helping drive that improvement across the globe. Very, very important to us. But what I will tell you is that all of the features, all of our requirements that we drive, these are customer driven. These come from you. We need to make sure that the things that we're productizing and creating have real meaning and real impact to your business. And with every single feature that ServiceNow brings to market, there is that customer interaction in evaluating, number one, the benefit, as well as the immediate impact that we can drive into any customer environment.
Hey, thank you, Eric, and thank you, Kathleen. That was really insightful, and I hope the audience today got a lot out of it. Let me switch gears now, and let's talk about HAMAX. And you're probably wondering, well, what's HAMAX? Well, let me tell you. Whether you're an asset manager on the call or an IT director, or maybe you even own the platform for ServiceNow for your organization, asset management doesn't have to be tough. We created HAMAX with people like you in mind. So think about this. The hardware your company uses affects everyone on your team, but trying to implement HAM by yourself can have longer lasting effects. A lot of times it takes a lot of money, takes years to get it right, and you usually have a team who's more frustrated and disconnected than ever. Well, listen to this. Think about this if you're an asset manager today. We know how frustrating and draining it can be to chase people down to get accurate information just to do your job. Well, what happens if you're an IT director, though? The weight of trying to maintain outdated, segregated systems is something you can't ignore for long. And it's a burden trying to carry the challenges for your internal customers, competing priorities, while everyone is looking to you to solve the IT problems. And lastly, if you're the ServiceNow platform owner, it's hard for you to keep everyone happy when it feels like there's many competing needs. It's not always easy to get buy-in from people who need your solutions the most, and it's a challenge any way you cut it. So HAMAX really addresses each stakeholder and provides you at each level the maturity level you'll need to run your business priorities. HAMAX is a prescribed offering, a fixed fee engagement that really gives you a programmatic approach to really implementing your asset needs with the ServiceNow platform. Lastly, We want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. And if you're really interested in more about the ServiceNow platform and specifically HAMAX, let us know. You can give us a call or email us. And lastly, I want to thank everyone for attending and have a great evening.